It's an impossible to miss landmark in downtown Whitehorse, and it's been slowly falling into serious disrepair, and climate change threatens to make things worse. Parks Canada is now floating an updated management plan for the SS Klondike National Historic Site, to both preserve the famous vessel and help it tell a richer story of the territory's history. A new 10-year plan for the site is now up for public review. It details, among other things, plans to rehabilitate the decaying 84-year-old structure and also incorporate more research into Indigenous history. Definitely, that is one of our goals, inclusion of a more just history. We are working on it, said Patera, manager of the site. The SS Klondike, according to Parks Canada, commemorates inland water transportation in the Yukon. The stern wheeler was built in 1937 and it's been open to public tours on the Whitehorse riverbank since 1981. It was one of hundreds of stern wheelers that plied the Yukon River in the earlier 20th century. The steam-powered vessels provided a major link between communities and to the world outside Yukon. They became largely obsolete with the construction of the highway between Whitehorse and Dawson City. The original S.S. Klondike was built in 1929 and ran aground 7 years later. A second one was built in 1937 and that's the one that now sits on the Whitehorse River bank. It was opened to the public for tours in 1981 and is now one of Whitehorse's most popular tourist sites. It's an important part of Yukon history, connecting the Yukon to the rest of the world, but also, changing the societies that were here in the Yukon prior to the arrival of the stern wheelers, Patera said. So having an impact, positive and negative, on the people of the Yukon. According to the draft plan, the vessel is in poor condition and in need of major structural and systems rehabilitation. Decades of sitting on land and weathering the northern climate has taken a toll, but the extent of the decay is not fully understood. The plan calls for a comprehensive analysis to see what work needs to be done. Climate change adds another challenge, the document says. Warming conditions and more precipitation over the years may further threaten the structure. Carpenters working on the vessel last fall. It's had a lot of work over the years, but is still in poor condition, according to Parks Canada. Temperatures fluctuations, which range from -40°C to +30°C with months of freeze-thaw cycles, and increased humidity will pose challenges to the conservation of the asset. These challenges need to be considered in the analysis of rehabilitation solutions. The draft plan reads: the goal is to have a long-term conservation plan in place by 2025. The plan also calls for more Indigenous history to be represented and incorporated into the site by 2025. That would include more use of Indigenous languages in interpretive programs and products, it says. For the first half of the 20th century, the stern wheelers of the British Yukon Navigation Company plied the upper Yukon River between Whitehorse and Dawson City. The SS Klondike was the largest of the fleet. Sitting proudly on the banks of the Yukon River in Whitehorse, she has been meticulously restored and refurnished, paying tribute to an era before roads, when riverboats and rail linked the Yukon to the outside world. The British Yukon Navigation, BYN, Company stern wheeler fleet plied the upper Yukon River between Whitehorse and Dawson City in the early 20th century. The SS Klondike was the largest stern wheeler in the fleet. Built in 1929, the ship sank in 1936, was rebuilt and launched as the SS Klondike II in spring 1937. Located on the banks of the Yukon River in Whitehorse, Yukon. and restored to its original 1937-40 appearance. The SS Klondike pays tribute to an era of riverboat transportation and the inland water transportation system that linked the Yukon to the outside world before the advent of roads. SS Klondike was the name of two sternwheelers, the second now a National Historic Site located in Whitehorse, Yukon, Canada. They ran freight between Whitehorse and Dawson City along the Yukon River, the first from 1929 to 1936 and the second, an almost exact replica of the first, from 1937 to 1950. Colorful frontier buildings line old-time boardwalks in Dawson City. Saloons, kinking girls and a vintage sternwheeler intertwine the present with 1898 Klondike Gold Rush days when some 50,000 gold seekers stampeded north. Visit the goldfields, a barren landscape of dreams, followed by a game of croquet at the elegant commissioner's residence. Explore a famed poet's historic log cabin or a European-style theatre and experience a magical northern outpost under the midnight sun. Klondike was built by the British Yukon Navigation Company, a subsidiary of the White Pass and Yukon Route Railway Company, in 1929 and had the distinction of having 50% more capacity than a regular sternwheeler, while still having the shallow draft and meeting the size requirements in order to travel down the Yukon River. Klondike had a cargo capacity of 270 metric tons without having to push a barge. Klondike ran aground in June 1936 north of the 30-mile section of the Yukon River, at 61 degrees 40'17" N 134 degrees 52'22" W. The company salvaged the ship's boiler, engines and many fittings to build Klondike II the following year. The hull of the SS Klondike can still be seen at low water by canoeists on the Yukon River. Klondike II carried freight until the early 1950s. Due to the construction of a highway connecting Dawson City and Whitehorse, many Yukon River sternwheelers were decommissioned. In an attempt to save Klondike II, she was converted into a cruise ship. The venture shut down in 1955 due to lack of interest, and Klondike II was left on the ways in the Whitehorse shipyards. The ship was donated to Parks Canada and was gradually restored until 1966, when city authorities agreed to move the ship to its present location, at that time part of a squatters area. The task required 3 bulldozers, 8 tons of palm olive soap, a crew of 12 men, and 3 weeks to complete. Greased log rollers eased the process. On the 24th of June 1967, the SS Klondike was designated a National Historic Site of Canada, 1, and she is now open during the summer as a tourist attraction. SS Klondike National Historic Site hours of operation: 9:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Buy tickets in advance on Viator. If you book with Viator, you can cancel at least 24 hours before the start date of your tour for a full refund. The best ways to experience SS Klondike National Historic Site are: Aurora hunting, the fascinating northern lights from various perspectives; Yukon's summer dream, active summer adventure, 5 days; Arctic tundra and Dawson City, naturally wild; Yukon Gold Experience featuring Emerald Lake and Carcross. This sternwheeler greets most visitors as they enter our city. It represents an age when the city of Whitehorse served a major function as the transportation hub of this entire region, taking miners, their families, and those who wished to take advantage of the gold rush to the Klondike. This sternwheeler may be toured today. Easy access and RV parking. SS Klondike II. Facts and specifications. The SS Klondike II was launched in Whitehorse in May of 1937. It is owned by the British Yukon Navigation Company, White Pass and Yukon Route, and its port of registry is Dawson City, Yukon Territory. As well as passengers, the SS Klondike also hauled cargo. Shipments downstream from Whitehorse to Dawson carried general cargo of fuel and food, and shipments upstream from Dawson to Whitehorse brought silver lead ore. Traveling downstream took approximately 1.5 days, and upstream trips took 4-5. Today, Parks Canada offers a self-guided tour option for those visiting the SS Klondike, and private tourism operators offer guided tours of the SS Klondike. For further information, please visit the Parks Canada website. Official No. 156,744. Length, 64 meters, 210. Width, 12.5 meters, 419. Molded depth, 1.5 meters, 5.75. Loaded draft, 1 meter, 40 inches. Light draft, 6 meters, 24 in. Gross tonnage, 1,226.25 tons, 1,362.5 tons. Registered tonnage, 918.45 tons, 1,020.5 tons. Cargo capacity, 270 tons, approximately 300 tons. Crew, 23, in 1940. Passengers, 75, LSD and second class. Engines, 2 compound jet condenser type producing 525 HP. Boiler, locomotive type. Fire tube, manufactured at the Polson Iron Works, Toronto, 1901. Previously used in steamer Yukon and SS Klondike No. 1, working pressure: 129.4 kilograms per square centimeter, minus 184 pounds per square inch.